r/NoSleep. Posted by u/alyssagalloo. My lover locked me in Doorless, windowless room. I had been with Jeremy for 5 amazing years when he finally asked me the question I've waited our entire relationship for: come live with me. I barely had to think twice. Every instinct in my body screamed yes. This was our next step, and no one was going to get in the way of us. We had fought a long and hard battle up until this point. Jeremy was much older than I was, and as a young woman in this world seeing a much older man, you get certain stigmas attached to your relationship whether they're true or not. Jeremy said that for our own good, we shouldn't go out in public. Every time we did in the beginning of our relationship, I would get overwhelmed by all the stares and glares in public and just break down and immediately ask to go home. I had never experienced shame like that before in my life, and I hadn't even done anything wrong. There's nothing quite like being high on the intoxicating smell and touch of your lover, walking as though not another single person in the world matters, when your close proximity is suddenly shattered by a middle-aged woman on a mission to create a world that matches her beige idea of normalcy. After Jeremy realized how affected I would become by our public encounters, we both decided that it was probably better if we focus on ourselves, and stop creating a noise after us by going out in public like that. We spent the rest of our relationship mostly in my little apartment in the city. Jeremy worked in the city but lived in the suburbs, so it was just much easier to stay in the city after work instead of both of us journeying out into the suburbs for a couple of hours. If I had to sum up our relationship in one word, it was bliss. Everything was perfect, and no one would come in the way of us again. I knew that Jeremy had been planning on building a house on some new land he bought further out into the suburbs, but when he asked me to move in with him, I honestly wasn't expecting it. He had come over and laid out blueprints and such and studied them with that architect's eye that he had, and I just would pour him some coffee and admire how hard he worked. He had never once hinted that this home might be for the two of us, but when he finally asked me to live with him, I already knew the layout of the new home by heart. I had spent nights studying the blueprints in his eyes. What I hadn't expected though, was how fast things would move after the initial question of me moving into his new home. Since we hadn't ventured out of my apartment in a while, I hadn't seen this new home, or realized just how far along the building process that Jeremy actually was. The night he asked me to move in with him, was also the night he asked me to pack my bags. But, ever up for adventure, I agreed and packed a couple of bags of my most important possessions, and eagerly waited for Jeremy to arrive in the morning to pick me up and bring me to our new home. I'd be lying if I said I slept at all that night that I was waiting for my love to come back and sweep me off into our future together. I leapt from bed 3 hours before he was set to arrive, and perfected my hair, my makeup, and made sure all of my bags were ready and sitting at the front door for when he arrived. I had already sent off an email to work saying I wouldn't be back. Jeremy said he would provide for us, and I wouldn't even need a car at the new home. We pulled up and I had to admit, I was impressed. Seeing the actual home in front of me, instead of just on blueprints, was mind-boggling. It seemed much bigger than I thought it was, and it seemed much bigger than its meager 4 bedrooms, but I assume the living space inside and bedroom space just must be huge. We pulled up in front of the home, and I could feel Jeremy's eyes on me as I stared up at the home in awe and wonder. "I can't wait to show you around," he said, and as I looked over, he had the biggest smile on his face, like a kid on Christmas morning. He opened my door for me, grabbed my bags out of the trunk, and carried me over the threshold. As soon as the front door opened, I was so starstruck by the crystal chandelier hanging from the ceiling in the entryway, I almost didn't notice Jeremy kick something out his way as he walked in. But I did notice it, and started to look down to see what he was kicking. At that same moment, Jeremy swung me around in his arms to face the windows in the front of the house and just breathed a simple look. I'm surprised he had breath at all because that view was incredible. The mountains spread out over the entire landscape, and there was a family of deer grazing on a lawn a ways away. I simply could not believe that this was my new home. Jeremy finally put me down, grabbed my hand, and led me throughout the home. The kitchen had custom marble countertops, the ceilings were vaulted, and there was a pool in the backyard. It was heaven. "You haven't seen the best part yet," he said as we walk up the stairs. He leads me through a relatively innocuous hallway and stops just in the middle of the hall. There were no doors here, no shelves, just nothing on the wall at all. "Here it is." He beamed and looked at me. "Baby. I just don't see anything?" He looked at me incredulously and pulled on the lamp hanging on the wall close by. Immediately, the wall began to shift. It seemed to sink back into itself until a very narrow passageway was revealed that navigated around the sunken-in wall to a stairway beyond. "Come on," he said, and obviously I followed. If our home had a secret passageway, I was going down it. As we stepped into the hallway, the sunken door seemingly reanimated and closed itself behind us. It's structured to shut again after 15 seconds, and it can only be opened from the outside. We followed the stairs up about a flight, to where it simply opened up to what looked like a studio apartment. There was a bed in one corner, with a partitioned-off bathroom area, and a small kitchen in the other corner. The most striking feature was undoubtedly the lack of windows. "And this is for you." He looked at me and beamed with a smile that always melts my heart. He set down my bags on the bed, and started to unpack me. But I don't understand. Why would I come up here if we have a whole house right down there?" Jeremy stopped unpacking my shirts onto the clothing rack he had installed from the ceiling, and walked over to me somberly. "Honey, there's something I need to tell you. You are going to live up here, and at this point, there's no going back. You no longer have a choice. This home is not for you and me, this home is for me and my family, my wife, and my 3 children. You'll be up here, I'll bring you food, and come visit you as often as I can. I couldn't stand having you so far away anymore. Only my assistant and I know the secret to opening the wall entryway, and there's no way out from the inside." His shoulders slumped as if he had lifted a weight off of them. And my entire body slumped as if that weight had just been put on my head. I crumpled into the floor, and sobs racked my whole body. My entire relationship had been a lie, and now I'm stuck in an attic with no windows, no doors, and no way of escaping. Jeremy walked close to me, until all I could see were his leather shoes on the floor through the haze of my tears. He patted me on the head, and said, "I'll give you a week to consider your new position. I'll be back next week and hopefully we won't have any issues. Oh, and this room is soundproof, so please don't try anything. I've custom engineered the entire area so that you cannot get out." With that, he disappeared down the stairs, rapped on the door 2 times, and the door sunk back and he vanished into the real world. It's been 2 days, and I've finally accepted my reality and the gravity of this situation. The main reason I'm typing this out and broadcasting it, is I don't think I'll last the week until Jeremy comes back. He forgot to stock the kitchen,